Mamelodi, like many other communities, has its share of infamous figures who have been involved in criminal activities or have gained notoriety for their actions. Some of the notable figures linked to the township include Mamelodi Mafia. The Mamelodi Mafia is a group of criminals associated with organized crime in Mamelodi. Over the years, members have been involved in drug trafficking, violent crime, and extortion. While no single individual is always identified as the leader, has made them infamous. The term Mamelodi Mafia refers to various criminal syndicates operating within Mamelodi, a township in Pretoria, South Africa. These groups are notorious for their involvement in extortion, organized crime, and other illicit activities that have significantly impacted the local community. Key syndicates operating in Mamelodi: Boko Haram gang activities. This group is infamous for extorting money from local businesses, including spaza shops and taxi operators. They have also been linked to controlling access to water resources, demanding payments from residents for water supply. Notable incidents. In July 2024, 5 alleged members of the Boko Haram gang were killed after attempting to extort a construction project in Chwani. They were reportedly abducted, tortured, and murdered for attempting to muscle in on a lucrative construction project. Farasa gang activities. Operating primarily in the eastern parts of Mamelodi, the Farasa gang is involved in similar extortion tactics, targeting local businesses and residents. They have been known to demand protection fees from shop owners and intimidate community members. Construction mafia activities. This syndicate focuses on the construction industry, extorting contractors and workers. They demand a share of construction projects and have been known to disrupt work sites to enforce their demands. Impact on the community. These criminal groups have instilled fear among residents and business owners in Mamelodi. Their activities have led to increased violence, economic instability, and a general sense of insecurity within the township. Efforts by law enforcement to combat these syndicates have met with limited success, partly due to community reluctance to report crimes and the pervasive influence of these groups. Law enforcement response. Authorities have initiated various operations to dismantle these criminal networks. However, challenges such as community fear, lack of cooperation, and the entrenched nature of these syndicates have hindered progress. Recent incidents like the killing of alleged Boko Haram members highlight the ongoing struggle between law enforcement and these criminal groups. The Mamelodi Mafia and its associated criminal syndicates are primarily known for their involvement in organized crime and extortion in the Mamelodi area of Pretoria, South Africa. Here are the main activities and characteristics that make them infamous. Extortion and protection. Rackets. Taxi operators. They are notorious for demanding weekly protection fees from taxi operators. Those who refuse to pay face violent threats or attacks. Local businesses. Shop owners, including spaza shops, are forced to pay monthly protection fees under the threat of damage to their property or harm to their families. Construction projects. Criminal groups like the construction mafia extort contractors by demanding a share of profits from construction sites, often disrupting work if their demands aren't met. Violence and intimidation. The Mamelodi Mafia uses fear and violence to maintain control. They are known to use aggressive tactics, including threats of physical harm, torture, and even murder, to ensure compliance with their demands. Violent takeovers. For example, they have been linked to the violent takeover of construction sites and businesses, asserting their dominance in various sectors. Control over local resources. These groups have been involved in controlling access to local resources, such as water supplies, and extorting residents for access or services that should be provided by local authorities. Gang wars and turf battles. The Mamelodi Mafia is often engaged in violent turf wars with rival gangs or groups within the taxi industry. This has resulted in heightened levels of violence in the area as different factions fight for control over lucrative routes and territories. Underground economy. The syndicates have their hands in the underground economy of Mamelodi, influencing illegal businesses such as drug trafficking, illegal gambling, and other illicit trade. They often monopolize certain activities, making it difficult for individuals to operate freely without their involvement. Corruption and influence. The influence of the Mamelodi Mafia extends beyond the criminal underworld and into the local community. They reportedly have connections with corrupt officials and law enforcement, which allows them to evade justice and maintain their operations with relative impunity. The Mamelodi Mafia's reputation is built on their dominance through fear, violence, and a combination of illegal activities that impact everyday life in Mamelodi and surrounding areas. Their control over certain industries and territories has made them infamous, and they remain a significant force in South Africa's criminal underworld. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for us to keep producing these videos. Boko Haram gang, Mamelodi, extortion, and violence. Several members of the Boko Haram gang have faced charges for extorting local businesses and residents, as well as being involved in violent acts like murder and intimidation. The gang operates mainly in the Mamelodi area, with investigations ongoing into their broader criminal activities. In 2024, a number of Boko Haram gang members were allegedly killed for attempting to muscle into a construction project in Tshwane, though their deaths raised concerns over vigilante justice. There is an ongoing investigation into whether these deaths were linked to their criminal activities and if they were indeed part of a larger syndicate. Extortion cases in the taxi industry. Members of the Mamelodi Mafia, particularly those linked to the protection rackets in the taxi industry, have been under investigation for demanding protection money from taxi operators. While many cases are difficult to prosecute due to fear and intimidation within the community, law enforcement has been investigating these practices. There have been attempts to gather evidence and testimonies from victims, though many cases remain unsolved due to the climate of fear surrounding these criminal groups. Murder of rival gang members. Rival gangs and individuals attempting to challenge the Mamelodi Mafia have also been involved in violent incidents, with some members of the mafia being suspects in such cases. These turf wars often lead to deaths and disappearances, with open investigations into the circumstances surrounding several unsolved murders, corruption, and collusion with local officials. There have been claims that members of the Mamelodi Mafia are involved in corrupt dealings with local law enforcement officers and officials, which complicates efforts to bring them to justice. Although investigations into corruption are ongoing, the mafia's influence in the area makes it difficult to gather enough evidence for successful prosecutions. Illegal construction activities. As part of the construction mafia, members of the Mamelodi Mafia are under investigation for extorting contractors and taking control of building projects. In particular, they have been involved in taking a cut of the profits from construction sites and intimidating workers. There are open cases involving contractors who have reported these extortion tactics to law enforcement. The difficulty in prosecuting these cases often lies in the culture of fear within Mamelodi, where residents and business owners are reluctant to cooperate with authorities. Many cases remain unresolved due to a lack of evidence, the mafia's control over the local area, and a general distrust of law enforcement in dealing with the powerful syndicates. Despite these challenges, investigations are ongoing, and authorities continue to target organized crime in the region. While the Mamelodi Mafia operates as an organized group with several factions and individuals involved, the identities of its specific members are often difficult to confirm due to the secretive and violent nature of their activities. However, some individuals and groups within the criminal underworld of Mamelodi have gained notoriety over the years for their alleged involvement in the mafia's operations. Here are a few known or suspected members. Boko Haram gang member. The Boko Haram gang, which is one of the most well-known criminal factions associated with the Mamelodi Mafia, has several key members whose identities are only partially known due to their underground operations. Some members have been arrested or killed in connection to their extortion and violent activity, but many names are still kept confidential due to ongoing investigations. Farasa gang. This gang operates in the eastern parts of Mamelodi and is suspected of being involved in similar extortion activities as the Boko Haram gang. Members of the Farasa gang are linked to protection rackets targeting local businesses and residents. Construction Mafia. While individual members of the Construction Mafia in Mamelodi have not been widely named, their role in extorting contractors and taking control of construction projects is well known. The group is part of the broader network of the Mamelodi Mafia, and their criminal operations have been the subject of ongoing investigations. Unnamed members of the Mamelodi taxi syndicates. Numerous individuals involved in the unregulated and often violent taxi industry in Mamelodi are suspected of being part of the Mamelodi Mafia. These include taxi bosses and operators who enforce protection fees on other taxi owners and drivers. Many of these individuals remain unnamed due to the secrecy and fear surrounding the criminal world. Local criminals and street gangs. In addition to the more organized groups like Boko Haram and the Construction Mafia, there are also numerous smaller street gangs and criminals in Mamelodi that collaborate with the Mafia. These individuals often serve as foot soldiers for more powerful syndicates, carrying out violent acts, robberies, and smaller-scale extortion. Challenges in identification. Due to the secretive and violent nature of the Mamelodi Mafia, many of its members remain anonymous or operate under aliases. Witnesses are often reluctant to testify, and law enforcement faces significant challenges in infiltrating the groups. As a result, the identities of the top players in these criminal syndicates are often hidden, and many individuals involved in the Mamelodi Mafia continue to evade prosecution. The ongoing investigations into these groups aim to uncover more names and bring those responsible for organized crime in Mamelodi to justice. However, given the climate of fear and corruption, progress is slow, and some of the Mafia's most influential members may remain in the shadows. Now, with all that being said, things get interesting when John Wick gets involved. I know what you think. John Wick? Yes, John Wick. The term South African John Wick could refer to a fictional or real-life figure known for exceptional skills in combat, precision, and a reputation for taking on seemingly insurmountable odds. Much like the iconic character John Wick, the South African equivalent would likely be a person with similar attributes, someone with advanced fighting abilities, an underworld connection, and a relentless pursuit of vengeance or justice. In terms of real-life South African figures, there are no direct counterparts with the same Hollywood fame as Keanu Reeves' John Wick character. However, there are a few individuals in South Africa's history and current events whose traits or stories could be likened to a South African John Wick due to their combat skills, tough reputations, or involvement in violent confrontations. Gunslingers or ex-Special Forces soldiers. South Africa has a number of ex-military personnel, particularly from elite forces such as the South African Special Forces, rackets, or Special Task Force, STF, who possess exceptional combat and firearm skills. Some of these individuals have become infamous for their involvement in private security work and, in rare cases, vigilantism. A notable example is Jack Bessinger, a former Special Forces operative who became famous in the South African mercenary community for his actions during the country's volatile years. While not a direct equivalent to John Wick, his background in combat and special operations gives him a mysterious aura similar to that of a trained assassin. Hitmen in South Africa's underworld. There are also figures in South Africa's underworld, often linked to organized crime or gang activities, who have developed a fearsome reputation for being able to eliminate targets with precision. These individuals often carry out hits for gang bosses or criminal syndicates, and their skills in close quarters combat, stealth, and firearms usage align with what one might associate with a John Wick-type figure. South African Vigilante. The vigilante scene in South Africa is an area where some figures might be seen as taking justice into their own hands, much like John Wick. For example, vigilante groups in certain parts of South Africa have made headlines by taking violent action against criminals or suspected criminals, often in response to frustrations with the justice system. These figures are sometimes seen as avengers, protecting their communities, but their methods can be controversial. The mythical South African avenger. There is also a cultural concept of the the avenger in South African folklore, often depicted in stories and urban legends about individuals who seek revenge for a perceived wrong. These characters may not be real, but they play into the idea of a South African John Wick figure, someone who operates outside the law, using lethal force to seek justice or revenge for loved ones or a community. While there isn't a direct real-life counterpart to John Wick in South Africa, there are several figures, either fictional, real-life ex-soldiers, or infamous hitmen who fit the mold of a deadly, skilled individual operating within a morally gray area. Whether drawn from the military, underworld, or the world of vigilantes, the concept of a South African John Wick is rooted in the country's dynamic and sometimes violent culture. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more videos.